Before this story begins, I want you to ask yourself one question. What happens when loneliness lasts too long and the line between right and wrong starts to blur? Because this isn't just a story about a quiet house. It's a story about silence, unspoken tension, and a moment that changed everything. Stay with me until the end, because the ending of this story will make you question every decision that came before it. And before we begin, subscribe to the channel if you enjoy deep, emotional, slow-burn stories that stay with you long after the video ends. You don't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let me take you inside that house. Marissa stood motionless at the kitchen window, one hand resting lightly on the counter, the other curled around the edge of the sink as she stared out into the yard. The late afternoon sun stretched long shadows across the grass, turning the familiar backyard into something unfamiliar, quieter, heavier. The house felt hollow, not empty, hollow. Andrew had left early that morning, just like he always did when another business trip called him away. His suitcase still echoed in her mind, the soft thud as he closed the trunk, the rushed goodbye, the promise to call later. Promises that always came late, or not at all. Marissa exhaled slowly and brushed a strand of auburn hair behind her ear, glancing at the clock above the stove. Any minute now, Caleb would be here. Her stepson hadn't lived in this house for years. College, work, life, all of it had carried him far away from the quiet halls of his father's home. Andrew had suggested it casually over dinner weeks ago. "Why don't we have Caleb stay for the summer?" he'd said. "Give him a break. Give us a chance to reconnect." Marissa had agreed, but not without hesitation. The boy she remembered was shy, awkward, always hunched over his phone, barely making eye contact. But boys didn't stay boys forever. And that thought unsettled her more than she cared to admit. The sharp sound of a car door slamming snapped her out of her thoughts. Her heart skipped just once, before she even realized why. Marissa wiped her hands on a dish towel and walked toward the front door, each step slower than the last. She told herself she was being ridiculous. It was just Caleb. When she opened the door, he stood there, framed by fading sunlight, a duffel bag slung casually over his shoulder. "Hey, Marissa." His voice was calm, confident, not the hesitant tone she remembered. "Caleb," she replied, forcing a smile. "Welcome home." As he stepped inside, she noticed it immediately. He was taller, broader. His movements were measured, deliberate. Dark hair, slightly messy, a faint stubble along his jaw. This wasn't the boy who used to mumble responses and disappear into his room. This was a man, and that realization sent an uncomfortable ripple through her chest. "It's been a while," Caleb said, glancing around the house with a small, knowing smile. "It has," Marissa said, quickly looking away. "Your room's ready, just like you left it." "Thanks." He picked up his bag. "I'll unpack." As he disappeared up the stairs, Marissa stood frozen for a moment longer than necessary. Her chest felt tight. The house didn't feel hollow anymore. It felt crowded. That evening, they sat across from each other at the dining table, the soft clink of utensils filling the space where conversation should have been. Marissa had made pasta safe, simple, familiar. She didn't trust herself to make anything complicated. "This is good," Caleb said eventually, breaking the silence. "Thanks for cooking." "You're welcome," she replied quietly. "It's nice to cook for someone again." He chuckled softly. "Dad's been gone a lot, huh?" Her gaze dropped to her plate. "He's busy. You know how he is." "Yeah," Caleb said. There was something unreadable in his tone. The silence returned heavier than before. Marissa caught herself looking at him when she thought he wasn't watching. The way he sat back in his chair, relaxed, self-assured, like he belonged anywhere he chose to be. So different from the nervous teenager she remembered. "So, how's college?" she asked, just to fill the space. "It's fine," he said. "I took a break this semester. Needed time to think." She looked up, surprised. "Your dad didn't mention that." Caleb shrugged. "Didn't seem important." That confidence again. It left her feeling strangely unsteady. Later that night, Caleb insisted on doing the dishes. Marissa protested at first, but eventually retreated to the living room with a glass of wine, curling into the corner of the couch. She tried to relax, but every sound from the kitchen pulled at her attention. When he finished, Caleb leaned casually against the doorway. "All done," he said. "Thank you," she replied. He stepped closer and sat across from her, posture loose, eyes observant. "So, how's life been for you, Marissa?" The question caught her off guard. "It's fine," she said quickly. "Quiet. Quiet can be nice," he said, then paused. "But it can get lonely too." Her breath caught. She stood abruptly. "I think I'll head to bed. Long day." "Good night, Marissa," he said softly. His voice lingered even after she left the room. As she climbed the stairs, one thought echoed in her mind. Something had shifted, and she didn't know how to stop it. That night, Marissa lay awake far longer than she should have, because deep down, she knew the quiet wasn't peace anymore. It was a warning. Marissa barely slept that night. She lay staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of the house, the soft tick of the clock, the distant rush of air from the vents, the unfamiliar awareness that she wasn't alone anymore. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw him, not doing anything, just standing there, watching. When morning finally came, it brought no relief. The air was already thick with heat, the kind that clung to skin and made every thought feel heavier than it should. Marissa moved through the kitchen on autopilot, slicing fruit, arranging plates, pretending her hands weren't trembling. She told herself it was nothing, just nerves, just adjustment. Then she heard footsteps on the stairs. Caleb entered the kitchen looking like he'd slept well too well. His hair was messy, his movements unhurried, his presence filling the space without effort. "Morning," he said. "Good morning," she replied, forcing calm into her voice. He leaned against the counter, watching her longer than necessary. "You're up early." "I always am." "Old habits," he said, nodding. When he asked if she needed help, her answer came too fast. "No, I've got it." The sharpness in her voice surprised them both. She softened it immediately, but the moment had already passed. Caleb didn't smile. Instead, he studied her. "You seem different," he said. "Everything okay?" The knife paused mid-slice. "I'm fine," she said carefully. "Just tired." He murmured, not convinced. Later that afternoon, Marissa escaped into the garden. The sun beat down relentlessly as she trimmed rose bushes, the repetitive motion grounding her, or at least she hoped it would. But her thoughts betrayed her. Every memory from the night before replayed on a loop. Every word, every look. She didn't hear the back door open, only sensed a presence. "Thought you might need this." Caleb stood behind her, holding out a cold bottle of water. His arms were bare, muscles catching the sunlight. She accepted the bottle, their fingers brushing for the briefest second. Electric. She pulled her hand back instantly. "Thank you." He crouched beside her, watching quietly. "You take good care of these," he said. "They require attention," she replied. "But they're worth it." He nodded slowly. "Sounds like you." Her hand froze. "What do you mean?" "You put effort into everything, people too." Her throat tightened. "I think you're reading too much into things." "Or," he said calmly, "I just notice what others overlook." She stood abruptly. "I should finish up." As she walked away, she felt his gaze on her back steady, unreadable. And deep inside, she knew something dangerous had begun. That evening, the house felt smaller. The walls seemed closer, the silence louder. Dinner was quiet, painfully so. Finally, Caleb spoke. "You're avoiding me." Marissa's fork paused. "I'm not." "You are." She sighed, setting her utensil down. "This situation, it needs boundaries." He nodded slowly. "I agree." The ease of his agreement unsettled her. "I respect you," he added, "more than you think." That was the problem. She stood. "I'm going to bed." This time, he didn't stop her. Sleep never came. Sometime past midnight, Marissa heard footsteps outside her door. A pause. A breath. Then a soft knock. Her heart pounded. "Marissa," Caleb said quietly. "I just wanted to say, I'm leaving early tomorrow. I think it's best." Relief washed over her, sharp and overwhelming. "I think so too," she said. There was a long silence. "Good night," he said. "Good night." The footsteps faded. Morning came with sunlight and birdsong and an empty driveway. Caleb was gone. Weeks later, Andrew returned. Life resumed its familiar rhythm. But sometimes, standing at the kitchen window, Marissa would feel it again. That shift, that awareness. And she understood something she hadn't before. Loneliness doesn't announce itself loudly. It waits quietly until you're vulnerable enough to listen. Some lines, once approached, can never truly be unseen. And some silences are louder than words.